Every 26 seconds, a violent crime occurs in the United States. Every day, neighborhoods that seem peaceful by day become something entirely different when the sun sets. Have you ever heard a noise outside at night that made your heart race? A rustling sound just beyond your window? A shadow moving near your front door? A distant whisper that didn't quite sound human? What if I told you that some of the scariest stories don't come from haunted houses or ghostly apparitions, but from the very neighborhoods we call home? Tonight we're diving into chilling real-life neighborhood horror stories, tales that will make you question how well you truly know the people living next door. Lock your doors, turn on the lights, and if you dare, stay with me as we unravel some of the most disturbing stories ever told. Neighborhoods. They are supposed to be places of safety, comfort and community. Streets lined with homes where families gather, where kids ride their bikes, and where people exchange friendly waves with their neighbors. But what if, hidden beneath that familiar facade, there were stories that send chills down your spine? Sometimes the scariest stories don't happen in old abandoned houses or deep in the woods. They happen in places just like yours, on quiet cul-de-sacs, in apartment complexes, and down the very streets you walk every day. Neighborhood horror stories are terrifying because they blend the ordinary with the unexplainable. They aren't just ghost stories whispered around a campfire. They are real experiences, urban legends mixed with terrifying truths. Some of these tales involve mysterious strangers who watch from the shadows. Others tell of unexplained noises, figures that appear in the night and disappear just as quickly, or unsettling encounters with people who just don't seem right. Then there are those stories, ones that defy all logic. Stories of missing people, houses that no one dares enter, figures that show up in photos but were never there in real life. Are they myths, hallucinations, or is there something lurking in the places we least expect? Tonight we are peeling back the curtain of normalcy to uncover the eerie, unsettling and downright terrifying stories that took place in seemingly ordinary neighborhoods. Some are local legends passed down through generations. Others are first-hand accounts, stories so chilling they will make you rethink how safe you truly are in your own home. And the scariest part? These stories could happen anywhere, they could happen to anyone. Maybe they've already happened to someone just down the street from you. We like to believe that our neighborhoods are safe havens, places where we can let our guard down. But what if that safety is just an illusion? What if, lurking in the shadows of your quiet street, something or someone is watching, waiting? Think about it. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night to an unfamiliar sound outside your window? A creak of the floorboards when you know you're home alone? The feeling that someone, somewhere is watching you. But when you look, there's nothing there. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe it's just the house settling. That's what we tell ourselves. Because the alternative, the thought that something sinister could be just outside our doors, that's too terrifying to consider. But what if that unease is justified? What if your instincts, the ones that make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, are right? It could be the stranger who lingers just a little too long at the corner of your street, the neighbor who never quite meets your eyes, the house at the end of the block that no one dares talk about, the missing pet flyers that keep appearing on the telephone poles, the stories that start as whispers but grow into something darker, something more real. Some neighborhoods have secrets, some houses have histories, and some people aren't who they appear to be. It's easy to ignore that eerie feeling, to convince yourself it's all in your head. But once you hear these stories, once you know what others have experienced, you might start to wonder, What if there's something sinister happening right under your nose? And what if you're next? Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the real terror. The true stories of neighborhood horror that will make you question just how safe your own street really is. These tales, gathered from real accounts and local folklore, will leave you wondering what's lurking just beyond the glow of your porch light. Our first story comes from a woman named Rachel, who moved into what seemed like the perfect neighborhood, quiet, peaceful, and filled with friendly families. But there was one house, one that stood at the end of the cul-de-sac, its windows always dark, its curtains never moving, except when they did. At first, Rachel thought it was her imagination, a trick of the light, but every night at the same time the figure would be there, standing in the window, watching, never moving, never blinking, just watching. One evening she finally worked up the courage to ask a neighbor about the house. The response sent chills down her spine. "That house," the neighbor said, "it's been abandoned for years." The next night the figure was gone, and in its place a single note taped to Rachel's window, 3 words written in shaky handwriting: "I see you." Sometimes the most chilling stories don't involve ghosts or haunted houses. Sometimes they involve people, real people, who simply disappear. Lisa's uncle Henry was a creature of habit. Every night at exactly 9 o'clock, he would take his German shepherd Duke for a walk around the block. Neighbors would wave and Henry would tip his hat. He had been doing this for years. Until one night he didn't come back. The police searched. Neighbors banded together, calling his name, retracing his usual route. But there was no sign of Henry. No signs of a struggle. No answers. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. To this day, no one knows what happened. Some say he ran away, but his family swears he had no reason to leave. Others whisper about the shadow, a dark, humanoid figure seen lurking near that very street for decades, always appearing before someone goes missing. Was Henry taken? Did he step into something he wasn't meant to see? Or was there something out there that had been waiting just for him? This next story comes from Tom, who grew up in a neighborhood with an unusual rule. Never, under any circumstances, knock on the red house at the end of the street. According to the local legend, the man who lived there had died years ago, but no one ever saw his body removed. No funeral, no moving trucks. And yet, some nights, lights would flicker inside, and if you got too close, you'd hear whispers, low and urgent, as if someone was talking. But to whom? One night, Tom's curiosity got the better of him. He walked up to the house, placed his hand on the doorknob, and just as he was about to turn it, bang! A sound like a gunshot echoed through the street. He ran home, locked his doors, and never went back. The next morning he told his parents, who exchanged a glance before finally admitting the truth. The man who lived in that house had never left. Not really. And the few who tried to prove otherwise were never seen again. And these are just a few of the stories that prove one chilling truth. Sometimes the scariest things aren't found in haunted houses or deep forests. Sometimes they're right outside your front door. We've heard eerie tales of ghosts, missing people, and watchers in the dark. But sometimes the true horror isn't supernatural. It's something much worse. This final story comes from Sarah, a woman who unknowingly lived with a nightmare lurking just beyond the walls of her own home. At first, she assumes it's mice, but then the whispers start. These stories remind us of one simple, chilling truth. No matter how safe we think we are, The unknown lurks closer than we ever realize. It could be watching you from the shadows, or perhaps it's already inside. So the next time you hear an unexplained noise in your home, ask yourself, are you really alone? Throughout the night, we've journeyed through chilling stories, some whispered between neighbours, others pulled straight from local headlines. Each tale, though unique, shares a common thread, the fear of the unknown. The creeping unease that reminds us how little we truly know about the world around us, or the people who inhabit it, the silent watcher. A family kept finding strange footprints outside their windows. At first they dismissed it as paranoia, until they discovered the unsettling truth. Someone had been watching them every night for months. The disappearing neighbour. A friendly neighbour suddenly vanishes without a trace. The house sits empty for years, until a new family moves in and starts uncovering hidden messages carved into the walls, desperate pleas for help that no one had ever seen or heard. The shadow in the street late-night walkers report seeing a dark figure at the edge of their vision, lurking just outside the glow of the street lights. No one ever sees its face, and those who get too close, they never seem to be the same afterward. The man in the walls, perhaps the most terrifying of all. A woman who thought she was living alone, only to discover someone had been secretly living inside her home for months, watching her every move. Many of these stories tap into a universal fear, the idea that someone or something is watching us when we least expect it. Whether it's the shadow outside the window or a presence inside our own home, the unknown observer is a terror that lingers in our subconscious. We like to think of our neighbourhoods as safe havens, places where we can relax and let our guard down. But these tales remind us that horror isn't confined to dark forests or abandoned buildings. Sometimes it's right next door. What makes these stories so chilling isn't just what happened, it's what we may never know. How long was the watcher outside the window before they were noticed? What happened to the missing neighbour? Was the figure in the street ever really there? Or was it something else entirely? So as you turn off the lights tonight and lock your doors, take a moment to think about the world just beyond your front step. The quiet streets, the darkened houses, the unseen spaces within your own walls. Do you really know what's out there? Or are there stories waiting to be uncovered, right in your own backyard? Now it's your turn. Have you ever experienced something strange, unsettling, or downright terrifying in your own neighbourhood? Maybe a shadowy figure that vanished the moment you looked twice? A house with a past no one wants to talk about, or a noise in the dead of night that still haunts you to this day. Share your own neighbourhood horror stories in the comments below. Who knows? Your experience might be the next chilling tale we explore. And if you think this was scary, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Click on the video on your screen now for more spine-tingling horror stories that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the world around you. Until next time, keep your doors locked, your curtains drawn, and never ignore that feeling of being watched. Sweet dreams, or should I say, sleepless nights.